thumbnails, it just makes one up from one of the first frames. So I should do like all the YouTubers, the post Mr. Beast YouTubers all do. Oh, whoa, whoa, like reaction videos where, but the thumbnail's like, oh! Like they're doing some weird like. That sounds no. I remember some Japanese show where like they were doing like way over the top reactions to stuff. You can't do that. That seems racist. All right. Let's see if we can get this to work. Oh. I'm still don't know what I'm doing with OBS. I don't know what you're doing with anything. Why would that be any different? Can you do some new voices at least, you fucking weirdo? Well, maybe I can, maybe I can't. Spent most of my youth idolizing that guy off Police Academy, and my old man saying, "Stop with the stupid fucking voices, would you, son?" My little brother used to find it hilarious. And I just lost all my fucking... I used to be able to do fucking... And then, mind you, in the 90s, you could do some... sort of did... There was some racist voices. Which, apparently it's fine for, like, Uncle Roger to do. Like, that's not how Nigel Ng... How do you pronounce his last name? Ng? Ng? That's not how he sounds, and that wasn't how he sounded when he was doing stand-up. It's a character his friend created. Oh, there's my dumb face. Yeah, stop talking about Uncle Roger. Nobody likes you, that you don't like things that are popular. Okay, so if the sound works, because I can hear it.
So much of our life is lived in a fog of automatic, habitual behavior. We spend so much time on the hunt, but nothing ever quite does it for us. And we get so wrapped up in the hunt that it kind of makes us miserable.
Say anything interesting anyway, am I?
This is performance art. Oh, performance art. Oh. I'm an artist, I am. I'm cleaning my room as performance art. Oh, performing.
Everything I ever wanted. I had everything I was supposed to have. Everyone around me said, "You're successful." But really, I was miserable. There was this gaping void in my life. So I tried to fill that void the same way many people do.
With stuff.
Stuff. Lots of stuff. I was filling the void with...
Oops!
I was spending money faster than I was earning it. Attempting to buy my way to happiness.
I'm not buying any of this stuff. This stuff's so
I thought
funny.
I'd get there one day. Eventually, I mean, happiness had to be somewhere just around the corner.
Look how bad it is. It's terrible.
I was living paycheck to paycheck. Living for a paycheck. Living for stuff. But I wasn't living at all.
Planning and forethought, though.
At a time when people in the West are experiencing the best standard of living in history, why is it that at the same time there is such a longing for more? I think of that as a kind of biologically based delusional craving. That auto-craving is a good strategy to keep animals alive, including early human animals, in really harsh conditions. But these days, today, it creates a disconnect. You're like a puppet whose strings are being pulled by Mother Nature and evolution, reaching back tens of millions of years. We still feel restless. We still are always scratching the claw for more.
It's why lottery winners are miserable.
Mint in box!
Homeowners have 3-car garages.
It's actually getting harder to get promotional stuff out. They don't do as much alcohol promotion as they used to.
The second car comes about because we tire of the first car, and as humans, we're wired to become dissatisfied.
I only got a new car every time the old car was undrivable anymore.
And we are
Literally, like, could not be fixed.
through technology and information.
Only time I've ever got a new car was when the old car was completely...
has, for the most part, these blinders on. There's definitely this illusion of what our lives should look like. Whether it's advertising or your Instagram or Facebook feed, it's this illusion that our lives should be perfect.
It's natural to use other people's lives and even imagined lives, the confections we see in advertisements, as a yardstick. You open Vanity Fair or Esquire and you see very sexy and glamorous lives. And then the projects, for most people, seems to become, how can I get close to that and get. There can be an immense amount of dissatisfaction trying to live that way, and many of us see no alternative but to live that way.
Should just had it on a rotating thing where it would go...
Infiltrate culture. It's in our movies. It's in our television shows. It's in our books. It's in our doctor's offices. It's in the taxi cabs. It's in the bar sitting next to you. The person who you think you're just having an idle chat with could have been placed there by an alcohol company.
Mr. Marketing.
It's been a slow evolution. This is not something that just happened yesterday. This is something that has been sold to us over, say, the past 100 years, slowly but surely, by those that want to make a lot of money.
Now that's what I call a good-looking cow.
They want us to believe that we really need these things.
I'll have to add this to that playlist of movies.
More stimuli, there's more pressure, more options, there's more media, there's more noise. And by streamlining, simplifying, and just letting people know that they have the option, it's that wake-up call that is really valuable in a very critical time right now.
It got to a point in my life where I didn't know what was important anymore. Then, at some point when I was approaching 30 years old, I noticed something different about my best friend of 20-something years. Josh, he seemed happy for the first time in a really long time, like truly happy, ecstatic. But I didn't understand why, because we had both worked at the same corporation, we had both wasted our 20s climbing the corporate ladder together, and he had been just as miserable as me. So I did what any good best friend would do. I took him out to a really nice lunch. I think we went to Subway. And I sat him down and I asked him a question. Why the hell are you so happy? He spent the next 20 minutes telling me about this thing called minimalism.
Before I discovered minimalism, I think my life looked like pretty much anyone else's. I had a lot of stuff. Hundreds, thousands of books, DVDs and VHSs, closets full of expensive clothes, all of these things that I brought into my life without questioning. But when I started letting go, I started feeling freer and happier and lighter, and now as a minimalist, every possession serves a purpose or brings me joy. I have a bed and a chair and a radio, and I have some furniture in my dining room, my kitchen, I have appliances. I don't have any excess stuff. Everything that I look around at, I have to be able to justify to myself, not to anyone else, but just justify to myself. Does this add value to my life? And if not, I have to be willing to let go. Ryan and I just finished writing a book about the last 5 years of our lives, from being suit and tie corporate guys to minimalists. And so now we're going to get on the road for 10 months this year and promote that book, but really promote a message we really believe in, a simple living message of living more deliberately with less. Oh, I need a jacket. We'll see where the journey takes us.
So you presented this as a 12-minute talk, 8-minute reading. Okay. Because that is so much a rush to talk, that's all. Alright.
I'm gonna take this. Figured that computer was like this.
I was born ready.
Nice.
VGA,
Thanks for coming out. My name is Ryan Nicodemus, and this is the Joshua Fields Milburn. And together we run a website called minimalists.com. So today, Josh is going to read from our new book, but first I'm going to tell you a story about how we became the minimalists.
We've never been shut out, so as long as one person shows up,
That's all that matters.
that's really good. We've had events where we've had 2 people show up, and that was amazing. So we got to spend time with 2 people and add value to their lives in a different way.
I'm a hugger, man. Thanks for coming out and seeing the talk, man. Our pleasure. Did you get your Kindle in the back in there?
Oh, yes, thank you.
From the day I was born until the 2nd grade when my parents got divorced, I had like the perfect quintessential mom and dad. When my mom left my dad, she just really went off the deep end. By junior high, we had a lot of people over at the house. And later I found out they were in there smoking crack. They would cook crack.
What? I wasn't expecting that.
The SWAT team was kicking in our door, busting my mother with some drugs. It was a drug that overtook my mother. Josh had a very similar childhood to what I did.
My very first memory is my father extinguishing a cigarette on my mother's chest.
Jesus.
Shortly after she left my father, she started drinking. It was my biggest fear that I was going to get taken away from her. When she was sober, she was a phenomenal mother. I think she kind of felt trapped. My mom always complained about money. She didn't have any money.
I remember being poor growing up. And I remember thinking, when I graduate high school, I want to start on a path that is going to take me somewhere other than a struggle.
Was saving these to like make a moth?
We're currently on our way to NPR for a radio interview. Those are our peeps.
I think so, yes.
We are ready. How are you? I'm Ryan. I I think my light bulb moment is when I was
That's the problem. I
filming
can't
my
get rid of
guy,
things. It's like, no, maybe I'll use it.
to a 5-year-old. What am I doing? This mentality of getting a better promotion, getting a better house, getting a better car, getting a bigger paycheck, being able to buy more expensive bar tabs. And to do that, I had to sell something to 5-year-olds.
There's a template out there. You can call it the American Dream or keeping up with the Joneses or whatever. That's just a template. It's not the template. And once we realize that, I think we can create our own template that works just for us.
The American Dream has a long history. It started out as a concept that was really more about opportunity. The U.S. is a land of opportunity where somebody could start out at the bottom, work hard, and do well. There's no question that what it means to have made it and to have achieved the American Dream in the United States has increased tremendously in material terms. $100,000 a year plus kind of income became more and more an aspirational norm across the society because that's what's portrayed as normal on TV. A six-figure income. Beginning from about the mid-1990s, Americans went on a buying spree that was probably unprecedented in human history.
Coffee.
And a lot of it had to do with the cheapness of products coming mostly from China.
And Taiwan.
Whether we're talking about fashion, electronics, all kinds of household goods.
So stuff's cheaper, but it's also more available. You can order stuff 24 hours online, there are big box stores. We ended up accumulating a lot more stuff. So much so that even though we have about 3 times the space per person than we used to in the 50s, so a lot more space, we've got so much stuff, we need space on top of that, and so there's a 2.2 billion square foot personal storage industry, which is ludicrous.
So you have people living in these enormous homes. And if you really look at it, people don't use the space that they have. Someone did a study that showed a heat map of like where people travel inside their homes over the course of a normal day. It was a family of 4, and they were in a very average home. And what they found is that people used about maybe 40% of their space. Nobody used the dining room. No one used the living room. There was a big, porch. No one used the porch. I mean, I'm not saying this is the way everyone lives. Some people use dining rooms, but it creates this big vacuum that you have to fill, so people are throwing all this crap into their homes that they don't need.
We're living our life depending on the space we've got rather than creating our space to fit our lives. It's so easy to go wrong, and you wind up with 3 dining tables in the same house. Well, you gotta run pretty fast to eat at 3 tables at the same meal. Nothing is more responsible than living in the smallest space you possibly can.
We've probably sold or donated, I'd say at least 90% of our stuff. I mean, you can't bring all your stuff into a tiny house. I was commuting about 2 hours a day and then sitting in a cubicle for 10 to 12 hours a day. I had gained a lot of weight, I was unhappy, and I was kind of like, what's wrong with me? I should be happy, I've got all this stuff. Nice home, great husband. And Logan was like, well, you could probably quit your job if we simplified and moved into a smaller apartment. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't want to get rid of my stuff. I found a YouTube video, saw the tiny houses, and I was hooked. Hi, Earl. What's up, dude? I think the biggest thing for for me, at least in the beginning, was the financial side of things. When we looked at our budget and the numbers, I was like, well, let's just give it a go. If I hate a smaller apartment, we can always upsize.
I think there's this element of affordability, simplicity, and sustainability that just makes tiny houses seem like the perfect solution to a problem we haven't yet figured out, which is how do we go from working all throughout a lifetime to enjoying a lifetime with a bit of work here and there. For a long time when people were looking to buy their first house, they looked at their budget and said, how much money do I have to spend? Oh, I have $500,000. Let me buy whatever $500,000 can get me. And the big mistake there was that these individuals didn't have $500,000. They had a loan that would guarantee them that amount. And of course, after a few years of people buying houses that they weren't actually buying, they were just hoping to buy someday, the entire housing market collapsed.
We're down 1.7% here, a loss of 37 points or so. Apple shares are just getting hammered this morning.
We're down between 3 and 4.5% generally across these markets. Let's start with the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate.
It was the worst day on Wall Street since the crash of 1987.
This could be the most serious recession in decades. And that means life that most Americans know is about to change, in some cases dramatically.
I think where that has left us in the wake of a recession is with a really, really strong appeal to buying a house outright.
The vision that really came out like that is just like, hey, I think we gotta take a step back here.
We're very much a mission-based company. The mission being to do more with less.
So the life edited prototype apartment started with me buying a place, 420 square feet in New York, and coming up with a really aggressive program. What I was asking for was a lot. Live at home for a couple, be able to have a sit-down dinner for 10 or 12, be able to have guests over in a civil manner, and be able to work at home with some sort of standing desk.
I think last night or yesterday I saw some kid that, I don't want to say, my brother's got brain damage, right? So I'm not trying to say anything bad about the kid, but I think he's got brain damage. And he tells like these weird jokes. But he had a stream that was like something, it was called Reading Bible Scriptures. And then I was like, okay, I clicked on it. And it was just like a video cam, this cam was just pointed at a window with the fan going. It was like nobody watching. Much like this. Oh, hey, there's somebody there. Oh, hello. And then I saw another one where somebody had set up their camera and it was showing Big Brother Nairobi, I think. But the sound was down, like it was just this and there was like 400 people watching. I like looked it up and you can just watch the show like online. I think you need a VPN though, it wouldn't let me do it. It's like not available in your country. It's weird what some people have streams for. So yeah, me doing some cleanup thing. Yeah, sorry, but I didn't see you SWJXHPP. I didn't see that, and
very quickly I realized that
ironically I had to go and find a broom for somebody. So I made the mistake of going out of the room to make a coffee, which I've forgotten to bring back. You gotta get things done, stop fucking around. literally painted myself in the corner here. If you didn't tune in last time, let me catch you up. So I had the house to myself. I got everything out of my trash heap room. Mainly to move the bed around because I realised, anyway, the bed was over there. Oh, that's right, because I want to have a desk to do some stuff on and then use that desk like, I want to have one for doing art stuff and one for doing like video editing and music, I think. But it'd also be good if I could just do like basic little streams where it's just like sort through these boxes of crap that I got, you know. I got like 500 views on some video I did where I was like doing my dumb stickers. I'm kind of weird, man. I don't check analytics or anything. And then the other night I was bored. I was like, oh, okay, what's my most watched video, most liked? And 10 likes is like a lot for me. Yeah, it was just one where I just like bored one day and I drew a sticker with my left hand. So apparently people like that kind of stuff. I kind of got all sad and stopped going out, like, because all the stickers were piling up. I wasn't putting them up. And it was got this weird thing where like I developed doing stickers as like a habit, like it was an artistic thing I could do all the time, and then I developed this style which was more simplistic, because if you put too much effort in, then you know you can put like a week, you can do a magnificent fucking thing and then stick it up and literally turn around and someone's ripped it down. So I developed this thing where it was like more quick, you know, sort of subconscious thing where I was trying to use pareidolia, which is seeing faces in things. Sort of like this, a bit like what Picasso was doing towards the end of his life, like simple line drawings, but oh boy, aren't you boring? But I used to just do it all the time. That was the main reason why I'd go to work, is like so I could do that before and after work. But then when I lost my job, I started to not leave the house, but I kept doing stickers. But then that got me sad because I've literally got thousands, at least. There's like 2 Corona boxes full, another box. Then I've got that other collection that was like, I was meant to do this project called the Night of 1,000 Stickers, but I never got around to that because there's always stupid reasons. Oh, I got to get a GoPro. Oh, I got to get a bit of a phone camera. Oh, I got to get it. So I had like 1,000 stickers ready to go. And, oh no, I better scan all the stickers, like, so then I've got it documented better. The plan was to like go through the city filming it at night, and then literally, yeah, just one day and one night put up 1,000 stickers, which I've done runs where I'd put up hundreds, and you'd be surprised how quick you could get rid of like a couple hundred stickers. Alright, that's very not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and nobody's watching. There's like one guy that stopped in for half a second and you start yapping your guts out. This is why you don't get anything done in your life. All you do is talk shit.
Small space.
Alright, so this is called minimalism. I'll add it to the...
One of the things that we really want to do is design homes around how people live.
It's on YouTube anyway.
What's truly important, creating more social homes, that actually bring people closer together.
It was kind of an incredible experience, because going from the 1,200 square foot space.
Minimalism, official Netflix documentary. Entire film. That's what it's called on.
There was less stuff to think about, our overhead was lower. This is when I first started to say, you know, this life edited thing, this philosophy, maybe there's something to it.
A beautiful feature for us, if you do development that does really well financially.
Those lights are the cool kids used to use.
And how so that it really spreads and we start to change how we live as Americans, and just change this desire for this bigger, better philosophy.
I think we've only begun to
events deliver that McMansion, I think that people are beginning to recognize that they've maybe been tricked. And that they maybe have more agency over their options than they once thought they did.
We're out sharing a recipe. You know, we're not out here trying to proselytize and not trying to convert anyone to minimalism. But I do want to share a recipe and see if there are ingredients that other people can get value from and apply those ingredients to their own life. There's this underlying discontent, and I think that it starts to manifest in our stuff. And what I'm finding as we go out on the road and we talk to so many people, everyone is looking for more meaning in their lives.
We're at the Tucson Book Festival. We're getting ready to go sign some books. And then a little bit later we'll do our speech. Man, look at all these people waiting to get their books signed by us.
This is really fucking Tetris, bro.
This doesn't feel like us.
If one person comes, then we will go out to the front stand.
To the 7 people that watch this occasionally, I want to make clear I'm not proud of it.
What time is it?
Look at my shadow.
Imagine a life with less.
What was I getting?
Less stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Less clutter. Less stress and debt and discontent. A life with fewer distractions. Now imagine a life with more time, more meaningful relationships, more growth and contribution and contentment. So it's funny because people will inevitably come up to us and will be like, "No, I'm not a minimalist like you. I have this book collection. I love books, and I've got a nice big library, and I love the way the books smell. I love turning the pages. I love how they feel. I love lending them out to my friends, and then we talk about the books later." And I'm like, "Hey, keep your books. It sounds like you get a lot of value out of your books." And that's what I would say.
I love my junk. I love the way it smells.
If you get a book or whatever, that's great. Make sure you minimize it afterwards. But I'd love to get a hug from you as well. We're big time huggers, so they're free and transferable. Make sure you grab one from us afterwards.
I love the smell of all of this shit. Why don't I just keep it? It's making me happy.
27 years old. Was the director of operations for 150 retail stores. It was December 23rd, 2008. I got a phone call from online. I sent it in voicemail, so I was in a meeting. 7 p.m. Going through this barrage of email. And I realized I had several voicemails. One from my mom. She'd been sober for a while, but I could tell in the message she had been drinking. On her voicemail, she said,
Yo,
"Honey, it's me.
I found this
Call me back."
Oh, yo.
She told me the doctors found something. She found out she had stage 4 lung cancer. She went through chemo and radiation. Stage 4, you don't get out of that. I got to the hospital. My mom was still in bed. First time I cried in my adult life.
Reals?
Sobbed uncontrollably. I kept saying I'm sorry. I didn't even know why I was saying it. It just was the only thing that I could say. I really wish that I would have spent more time with her.
That's what you're sorry about. Oh, that's my sister-in-law. She never fucking rings the bell. She's
My
wife's
mom's
she's got a kid.
still hangs in the air around me. And now, during the same month, my 6-year marriage is ending. But even while Rome is burning, there's somehow time for shopping
Oops. Oh, what he needs to know his mom is here. There he is. Now, buddy, are we actually just moving stuff around, or getting anything done? There's weird shit like this that, oh my god, I love this. So yeah, this entire box, literally just someone had put a box out on the curb that said free DVDs. The strange thing with media like that at the moment is if you look on Facebook Marketplace, there are people selling DVDs for like $10 each, and then there's other people like giving away entire boxes. It's a very strange market. But sorry, I've never owned a Blu-ray player, so I don't even know what the value of that would be. It says Blockbuster, so that makes it something. But this, look at this, isn't this great? This is artwork to me. Some little kid did his own little fucking Looney Tunes. Him, her, they, whatever. But the disc is like some KFC. I don't know. Lights, Camera, Mayhem, Devil May Hair. There's like 2 episodes or something, I guess. It's just so like there's no. It's a different time, you know. The idea of KFC giving away physical media now would just be strange. They got this license from Warner Brothers, so it must have been mostly kids, but it's like Muppets, Ace Ventura. What's this one? Superman Returns on Blu-ray. Alright, we're getting distracted. Oh, Vegemite. I never watched Vegemite. Is Vegemite worth watching? Pink Funhouse. NCIS. It must have been like a family or something. Oh yeah, that's that family I murdered. Surf's Up. Disney. Oh, Megamind's on double play Blu-ray. I don't. Who's got a Blu-ray player? Oh, hang on. It's just a DVD. Oh yeah, sweet. So there's a Blu-ray and a DVD. Okie dokie, shut up. Don't fall over out there, old woman. About an hour ago she said, I'm getting tired. And she's still out trying to garden. What are you doing? I can't have a break from you. Don't show off in front of kids. Just because you're some rugby, it doesn't mean you have to show off. making chicken wings and fried rice. I'll be like, don't get distracted. Just move the shit around so you can actually live here again. Oh boy. It's alright. He had one viewer for 30 seconds. Quickly changed his mind. Their mind. Its mind? I'm not going to play with the camera anymore, but I just want to convey, like, there is no room here at all. That Casey guy says you just leave the camera in one spot, don't move around. There's so much for the eye to take in. He didn't say it like that. I don't know. Casey guy with the nose. Apparently he was popular on YouTube a while back.
At IKEA.
I think.
See, when I moved out of the house earlier this week, toting my many personal belongings in large bins and boxes and 50-gallon garbage bags, my first inclination was, of course, to purchase the things I still needed for my new place. You know, just the basics. A shower curtain, towels, a bed, and I need a couch and a matching leather chair, and a love seat, and a lamp, and a desk chair, and another lamp for over there. And oh yeah, don't forget about the sideboard that matches the desk, and a dresser for the bedroom. And I need a coffee table, a couple end tables, and a TV stand for the TV I still need to buy. And now that I think about it, I'm going to want my apartment to be my style. You know, my own motif. So I need certain decoratives to spruce up the decor. But wait, what exactly is my style? Did these stainless steel picture frames embody that particular style?
Sort this out.
Does this replica Matisse sketch accurately capture my edgy but professional vibe? Exactly how edgy is it? What espresso maker defines me as a man? The fact that I'm asking these questions precludes me from being a, quote, man's man. How many plates and cups and bowls should a man own? I guess I need a dining room table too, right? And a rug for the entryway, and bath mats, and what about that one thing? That thing that's sort of like a rug, but longer? Yeah, a runner. We're gonna need one of those. And I'm also gonna need... Hell,
Sort through these today, actually. Yeah, I'm sure that's something.
My name is Sam Harris. I'm an author and neuroscientist, and I'm interested in how our growing understanding of what scientifically can and must and really should change our conception of what it means to live a good life. Gratifying desires in a starkly materialistic way is really an interesting phenomenon. You have this thing that you were obsessed about, but then the new version comes out, which is new and improved in a dozen ways.
When it comes to the newest, hottest, most crave-worthy status symbols, you can bet customers will wait long hours to snag one.
And now you no longer care about the one you have. In fact, the one you have is a source of dissatisfaction. I think we're confused about what's going to make us happy. Many people think that material possessions are really the center of the bullseye, and they expect that gratifying each desire that arises will somehow summate into a satisfying life.
It is clear that as human beings, we have strong attachment, initially in our lives to people who are caring for us. And sometimes it feels like those attachments spill over to objects, as if they were as important as people. I'm not so sure that we have such a great relationship with things.
Have you ever used these? I watched this on the shower twice, and look, there's still schmutz in it. Schmutz! Schmutz, I say!
I was talking to the author and sociologist Julie Shore, and I said the problem with our society is that we're too materialist. And she said, actually, if you think about it, in some ways, we're not material enough.
We are too materialistic in the everyday sense of the word, and we are not at all materialistic enough in the true sense of the word. We need to be true materialists, like really care about the materiality of goods. Instead, we're in a world in which material goods are so important for their symbolic meaning. What they do to position us in a status based on what advertising or marketing says they're about.
The status quo in the fashion industry right now is driven by fast fashion. Maybe when our moms were shopping for clothes, or our grandmothers, there were 4 seasons a year. Or maybe even 2 seasons. You dress for the cold, you dress for the warm. Now we work in a cycle of 52 seasons per year. They want you to feel so that you will buy a new
No! What are you doing?
There have actually been accounts of big fashion retailers bailing all of the clothes from one week together, slashing through them with scissors, destroying them and leaving them on the side of the road so that nobody can resell them or even wear them. They want consumers to buy as much clothing as quickly as possible.
The era of fast fashion in which we're making clothes in sweatshops, but we're not paying the free labor costs and we're not paying the ecological costs of these things, drove the price of apparel down so far that used apparel became worthless. I think rice and beans cost more than used apparel. In historical terms, that's the world upside down. And that represents the economics of such an extreme and profound unsustainability. For a scholar of these things, it's kind of breathtaking and horrifying. Fast fashion is what's happened to apparel and then increasingly to the whole consumer goods sector. Almost anything in the home now becomes an object of fashionability. And that's been a just dramatic transformation. If you think about the concept of fashion, it embodies in it the idea that you can throw things away, not when they're no longer usable, but when they no longer have that social value, or they're no longer fashionable.
I think people buy because they're trying to fulfill this void inside of them. And I know that because that was me. But no matter how much stuff we buy, how many different fads that we try, we don't become a more whole person. We keep looking.
Turn it into art or throw it away, you kid. That's what you're gonna do.
I think it goes to the bottom
Well, you collected it, apparently.
that you can never get enough of what you really want. You know, deep down, we don't really want
Well, just need some room, and then I could do it.
cars. We want what they bring us. We want to feel whole. We want to feel content. This mindless consumption, this same thing that's not making us happy is also causing the degradation of our habitat. We can afford to have 350 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We're closing in on 400 parts per million. It's caused by the burning of oil, natural gas, coal, of all the fuels that we use to power our consumer economy, to power the making of crap that we don't need.
This is real, and we really have to do something about it.
We're not going to ever be able to achieve the environmental goals that we're seeking while still expecting our lives to be the same. We're going to have to give up a lot.
Look at that bag of hats I had.
The truth is that a lot of that we're actually going to miss.
It has been like 4+ years that I've technically been homeless. So I go to new countries and rent flats. So it's maybe in between homes, or maybe home full.
I discovered a lot of homes. Just not in one place, not for very long. It's always interesting to go on a date or something and have to explain, oh yes, I'm homeless. Maybe I shouldn't lead with that. But when I first started reducing the number of things in my life and started getting rid of essentially everything that didn't fit into these bags, so I went through and took photos of everything that I owned in the world and counted. And as a result, I found out that I had 51 things in the entire world. I started living this way about 4 years ago. I was running a branding studio. I'd always wanted to travel the world, and I had never left the country. And that was kind of a sign of my failure in a lot of ways. So I started a blog, left my career behind in Los Angeles, and started looking for something new, something a little bit different, and something a little bit more in line with what I wanted out of life. And now I carry everything that I own on my back, much like a hermit crab or a turtle. I was able to get rid of everything that I owned that didn't fit into carry-on luggage, which was an immense decision and not something that I expected from the get-go. I realized very quickly I wouldn't need too much, and came to the conclusion that anything I left behind would probably be left behind forever. What did it at the end of the day? Knowing this path had been well tread, the direction I was going, and these very, very successful men and women with all of this money and all this prestige and all this professional background behind them, they weren't happy. They're very successful, but not in an absolute sense. They're dollars and cents successful. It seems far more likely that I could find something, find a definition of success that would actually get me to a place where I was both successful and just incredibly happy.
It does look like money can buy happiness in some sense. In global research, below $70,000 US a year, adding greater material well-being is linked to greater psychological well-being. But when you start pushing past that rough threshold, money doesn't buy happiness.
Oh, well, only 70,000.
Money, but you're not happy.
Jim Carrey has a quote where he says, "I wish everyone could become rich and famous so they could realize it's not the answer." The first response is always this: well, it's easy for Jim Carrey to say. He's rich and famous, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, who else could say that? It would take someone rich and famous to be able to say it's not worth it.
We all need to have our basic needs met. Having a house, food on the table, being safe. That's really important to recognize because not everyone has those things.
You think that more money is going to, say, give you security. The problem is that you don't necessarily have control over making more. One thing you do have control over is spending less. What you do have control over is having less. And that by having less, you automatically stretch what you do have.
It's not so much about financial gain for me as it is about financial freedom, which is the ability to wake up in the morning and spend one's day as they see fit. And part of why we pursue things is that we work for so long, and a lot of people aren't finding fulfillment in their jobs, and they need some way to tell themselves that it is worth it, that it is amounting to something more than a few numbers in a bank account.
Come on.
There's more to life than bills and money and work.
How do you win? You win by the traditional markers of success. You win by how many zeros are at the end of your paycheck. I remember I was sitting, in a Barnes and Nobles, and I was deciding what major I would study, and all I was doing was leafing through this book. It was a book that showed degree versus earning potential over time, and that's when I zeroed in on finance and accounting. My entire life became about winning with a capital W.
Looking for a
My
man
entire
of
life
finance.
became about being the guy that would be respected. And a series of vertical leaps in my 20s, which landed me in this place in 2008, making a ridiculous six-figure salary. I got a corner office, and on December 31st, 2007, my boss calls me into his office
tells me that I'm getting a promotion, and this is it. This is the game changer. This is me being a junior partner in the firm, and everything that I'd ever worked for was going to be handed to me right then and there. You know, in banking terms, I was minted, and I remember just hearing this man say it, and it was just a really bizarre kind of ethereal moment where I was like watching this happen. You know, it was almost
like mold.
And I walked out of his office, and I walked back into my own, and I just closed the door behind me. And I just started weeping because I realized that I was completely and utterly trapped, and that I would never be able to walk away from that amount of money ever in my life. And any dream that I had of living a life of purpose and meaning and being an adventurer and somebody that would actually take risks and live a life that's deliberate and natural, those were gone. When you see your life scripted out and you recognize that this is not anything why am I doing this? This guy that's handing me this from, I don't want to be him. I don't envy his life. You know, maybe this was never for me to begin with, and maybe if I don't leave right now, I'm going to be that dude for the rest of my life. And I just took the elevator down 28 stories, and that was it. And ever since then, I decided that this life was going to be mine, and it was going to be wildly, flamboyantly my life. You know?
Flamboyantly.
Ready? Here it is. All those people are waiting, and I'm not sure where they're supposed to be.
I'm thinking, do you want to take a look over here?
Sure, we can do that. We're scrambling to find seats for roughly 30 people.
This is the most disorganized night of the tour so far. We're in Las Vegas, go figure, and the space that we rented here, for whatever reason, aren't ready for us, even though that we paid to rent the space. Thankfully, there's some awesome people here who are really helping us. Somehow we're going to make this work.
Yes. Wow. Thank you very much. You know, it's funny. I used to think Rich was earning $50,000 a year. Then when I started climbing the corporate ladder in my early 20s, I quickly began earning 50 grand. But I didn't feel rich. Something went wrong. I had to go back to the drawing board. And I found out that I hadn't adjusted for inflation.
Okay, so we can pontificate for only so long. We're really here for you, as Ryan mentioned, and so we like to do what we call questions and attempted answers.
Dedicated, you're creative, you're innovative, you have a sincere desire for mankind. The very people who the wolves of Wall Street fear, and to me, you're moving yourself from the war. If you really talk about minimalism, the ultimate minimalist is a hermit, a recluse, or a monk. And to me, that's not going to change the world. You know what I'm saying? You're the only threat to that system.
You're right, there are two sides of the spectrum. I think, you know, we're ideally somewhere in the middle of that, right? Because I don't think there's anything wrong with consumption. The problem was compulsory consumption, buying stuff because that's what you're supposed to do. That's what advertising tells you to do, or that's what the magic template is for happiness, and then when you get it, you realize that it doesn't make you as happy as you thought it would. Yeah, it was a great comment. Thank you so much. Amen. Let me grab a hug. Yeah, thank you so much.
I tell you, your personality and your straightforwardness and answering all the questions, that charisma about it was connecting with the people, as you see yourself.
It's like 4:30 in the morning, and we are going to go be on TV.
Hello.
Good morning, 523. A lot of us look forward to buying the latest gadget or smartphone. But this morning, I'm joined by two men who've taken what they say is the simpler route and are living a life of minimalism.
Hi, we're here for 5 o'clock hour, 6 o'clock hour, Josh and Ryan with the Minimalists.
was living the American dream, and I realized it wasn't my dream. I looked around all the stuff in my life when my mother died and my marriage ended, both in the same month, and started questioning what was actually important, what things were actually adding value to my life, and I realized that many of the things that I bought to make me happy, they weren't actually doing their job.
Okay, well, good luck to you. Take it easy. Don't do too much. Don't buy anything today, all right?
Amen. Good luck with that. We'll be back in just a bit. Minimalism is not a radical lifestyle. I absolutely believe in quality over quantity. And so I'd much rather have one nice sweatshirt than a closet full of ugly sweatshirts that I don't enjoy wearing. I don't own a lot of clothes now, but all the clothes I do own are my favorite clothes. So let's take a look at what I packed for 10 months of travel. I'm wearing my one pair of jeans, got a couple denim shirts, I have a short sleeve, button-up Oxford, a few t-shirts, a blow dryer. Every good minimalist has a blow dryer.
What?
And plenty of underwear. Now here's the secret with underwear. You have to have one color that's in the middle. This is how you separate your dirty underwear from your clean underwear. With the red pair of underwear. Toiletry bag. Everyone needs a toiletry bag, obviously. And I also have a laptop with me, so that's it. 10 months.
We didn't really have a plan, which is pretty much our story. In 2010, when I was really digging into this decluttering and simplifying, I thought about the one place in my house that was the most cluttered, and that was my closet. And so I decided to create a minimalist fashion challenge to use less than what I had. So Project 333, the challenge for me was to wear 33 items for 3 months. And
oh my God, how could you?
33 items included clothing, jewelry, accessories, and shoes. And that's where I usually lose people. It was a great way for me to really see what I needed, what I was using, and just if it would make a difference. And so I was working in advertising. I had a lot of clients I had to see every day. I had sales meetings. And for that first 3 months, nobody noticed. The story got picked up by the Associated Press because so many people were writing about it, practicing it, and trying it.
In this video, I'm going to talk more about how I plan my Project 333. Project 333, Project 333.
And I thought, oh boy, this is it. And then I didn't notice. So I probably went that full year until I left my job with no one really knowing that I was dressing with only 33 items.
Well, caring, actually.
I do this thing called Project 333, and it just kind of helps me keep my order really simple. I went from this giant closet where I had, I don't know, 100 sweaters to now having this super tiny wardrobe and being able to share a closet with Logan. And that's made a big difference. Just, I don't fret about what I'm going to put on in the morning because all the stuff in my closet is awesome. At least I can tell.
There's something about now being prepared for every moment that actually helps you engage with your community.
It's this
Being
stuff.
pregnant, for instance, it's such a limited time. I had a dress up event to go to, and I said to David, let me go see if I can find a dress. And I was thinking, gosh, this is really outdated. I have 2 months left. The event is next week. What am I going to do? So I called a couple of my girlfriends. Hey, do you have any dresses I can, go through? But in the past, I definitely would have bought what I needed when I needed it because that's what you do. You prepare yourself, for your situation. The beauty of it is it becomes very communal. Our friends ask us for stuff. We've become closer to people because of it.
Sharing bodily fluids is so cool.
And then a year later, I started feeling really bad. I had a lot of vertigo and tingling and fatigue. That following year got really bad, and in July I was diagnosed with MS. And at first we were both terrified.
Sorry, that was a tough time.
I mean, immediately my response wasn't, I gotta simplify things, I'm a slow learner, so I decided I had to really push hard to prove that I was okay. And so I worked more, I worked out more, I really pushed myself for probably that first month, and I felt terrible.
In any disease or sickness, one of the biggest factors, one of the things that contributes to these things in a negative way is the stress in your life. By getting rid of these things in our lives, these material items and all this excess that we used to live in, good things happen.
Since then, I have not had what I would consider a relapse. I'm in better health than I was before I was diagnosed. People always tell you, or at least they did for me in the early stages of MS, you have to listen to your body. Like, listen to my body? I can't even listen to my family. I don't know how I'm going to hear my body. And so as I started to move that stuff out, I was able to finally realize what I had sacrificed by being busy, by engaging in constant work.
We have this capacity for focus, but we're living in a context where we are continually moving from one stimulus to the next in search of the dopamine experience where we're rewarded by the next email, or the next retweet, or the next thing that comes to the phone. I think there's a price we pay for that.
It's really become an issue. There's an Nokia study that says the average person checks his or her phone like 150 times a day.
You walk down the street in any major city, locked into their devices. We are totally in the matrix. And it's easier to be mindless and just read the paper, update your social media feed, and consume.
Because you can do anything you want, you can potentially do everything you want. But to do everything you want, you have to sacrifice the things that really are important. When it comes to the overwhelm, the easiest way to solve that is to turn it off. Or just turn it off.
It was really powerful to realize that most of my life was in a daydream. I got here at ABC News when I was 28 years old, and I was a really ambitious young guy. And my way of compensating for my insecurity about being such a newbie was to throw myself into the job and really become a workaholic. And after 9/11, I raised my hand to go overseas and cover the ensuing conflicts.
We were fortunate this week to have our reporter Dan Harris on a trip organized by the Taliban.
We arrived at night, a spine-rattling ride down a single, mangled road into a city under siege.
Took a lot of time in Iraq and Afghanistan without really thinking much about the psychological consequences. And when I came home from a particularly long trip in Iraq, I got depressed. And then I did something really, really dumb, which is I started to self-medicate with recreational drugs. It was enough, according to my doctor, to provoke a panic attack on live television.
We're going to go now to Dan Harris, who's at the news desk. Dan.
Health news now. One of the world's most commonly prescribed medications may be providing a big bonus. Researchers report people who take cholesterol-lowering drugs called statins for at least 5 years may also lower their risk for cancer. But it's too early to prescribe statins slowly for cancer production. That does it for news. We're going to go back now to Robin and Charles.
It raised the level of adrenaline in my brain, which, according to my doctor, primed me to lose it on Good Morning America in front of 5 million people. 5.019 million people, according to the Nielsen ratings. That moment set me off on a weird and windy road that ultimately led me to the last thing that I ever thought would be useful for anybody, which was meditation.
good enough. Meditation is a technique of finding well-being in the present moment before anything happens. You can be happy and satisfied simply being aware of the sensation of breathing. Very rarely are we fully dedicated to one thing. We're interrupting ourselves or allowing ourselves to be interrupted by these streams of data and what would in any other context be thought of as distractions, but now we think of them as just sort of all necessary parts of our bandwidth.
If I leave my phone in my pocket and it's on vibrate mode, unconsciously I'll flinch when it vibrates. I even flinch when it doesn't vibrate, thinking it vibrates. And that kills that little discussion, like those nanoseconds of distraction, I think has a hugely detrimental effect. Everywhere I look, it's like constant high-frequency flinches.
This anticipation of novelty has the character of making us the lab rat that's just pressing the bar. Meditation is a great antidote to that.
People around here at ABC News would ask me, why are you meditating? Parenthetically, what's the matter with you? What happened to you? Eventually I started to answer, because it makes me about 10% happier. And I could see the looks transform from scorn/skepticism into interest. Like, oh, that sounds reasonable. I'd like that. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever received in my entire life was from a meditation teacher named Joseph Goldstein. I was asking him about the utility of worry. And in the specific context, I was talking about whether it makes sense to worry about missing a flight. And I was arguing to him that, look, you Buddhists are always talking about how thoughts are just thoughts. They don't necessarily have any connection to reality. But the fact is, if I miss my flight, I'm screwed. And he said, you're unquestionably correct. But there's a certain amount of worry that makes sense and a certain amount of worry that doesn't. So on the 17th time that you're worrying about missing your flight and all of the horrible ramifications, maybe ask yourself a simple question. Is this useful? Boom. For a guy that's spent his whole life worrying and thinking that my work...
Alright, so that's... I'm going to kill that for a bit, because... I think it's like making the sound go funny anyway. I'm going to put back on that documentary from the other day about Century of Self. Justin Adam Curtis' channel. This is from uploaded 8 years ago, but I'm pretty sure it was on the BBC. Oh. I think I got 5 hours sleep. It just wasn't quite enough. It's just hitting me every now and then.
Journalist wrote, a change
I was watching this the other day.
over our democracy. Banker Paul Mazur of Lehman Brothers to behave irrationally if you...
Oh yeah.
Most government officials and managers
This is
of
10 minutes
today
in.
who thought if
Little
you
bit.
just hit people with all this
Hang on.
factual information, they would look
What
at...
was the bit where I was up to where it was like talking about getting rid of smoke?
As women smoking
There we
in
go.
public. Can you do anything about that? I said, let me think about it. And then I said, have I your permission to see a psychoanalyst to find
so
out
bright?
what cigarettes mean to women?
That's
He
worse.
said, what'll it cost? So I called up Dr. Brill, A.A. Brill, who was a leading psychoanalyst in New York at that time.
How come you didn't call your uncle?
Yeah.
Why didn't you call your uncle?
Why didn't you call your uncle?
Because he was in Vienna.
Yeah? You couldn't call Vienna?
A.A. Brill was one of the first psychoanalysts in America. And for a large fee, he told Bernays that cigarettes were a symbol of the penis and of male sexual power. He told Bernays that if he could find a way to connect cigarettes with the idea of challenging male power, then women would smoke, because then they would have their own penises.
In their mouth. Oh, got a penis in my mouth.
Every year, New York held an Easter Day parade to which thousands came. And Bernays decided to stage an event there. he persuaded a group of rich debutantes to hide cigarettes under their clothes. Then they should join the parade, and at a given signal from him, they were to light up the cigarettes dramatically. Bernays then informed the press that he had heard that a group of suffragettes were preparing to protest by lighting up what they called torches of freedom.
He knew this would be an outcry, and he knew that all of the photographers would be there to capture this moment. And so he was ready with a phrase which was torches of freedom. And so here you have a symbol,
women would have smirked in like
women, young women, debutantes, smoking a cigarette in public with a phrase that means anybody who believes in this kind of equality pretty much has to support them in the ensuing debate about this, because torches of freedom. I mean, what's on all American coins? It's liberty. She's holding up the torch. You see, and so all of this is there together. There's emotion, there's memory, there's a rational phrase, even though it's using a lot of emotional elements. It's a phrase that works in a rational sense. All of this is together. And so the next day, this was not just in all of the New York papers, it was across the United States and around the world. And from that point forward, the sale of cigarettes to women began to rise. He had made them socially acceptable with a single symbolic act.
What Bernays had created was the idea that if a woman smoked, it made her more powerful and independent.
With a penis.
An idea that still persists today.
Embrace me, my sweet embrace.
It made him realize that it was possible to persuade people to behave irrationally if you link products to their emotional desires and feelings. The idea that smoking actually made women freer was completely irrational, but it made them feel more independent. It meant that irrelevant objects could become powerful emotional symbols of how you wanted to be seen by others.
Eddie Bernays saw the way to sell product was not to sell it to your intellect, that you ought to buy an automobile, but that you will feel better about it if you have this automobile. I think he originated that idea, that they weren't just purchasing something, but they were engaging themselves emotionally or personally in the product or service. There's not, you think you need a new piece of clothing, but you'll feel better with the piece of clothing. That was his contribution in a very real sense. We see it all over the place today, but I think he originated the idea of the emotional connect to a product or service.
What Bernays was doing fascinated America's corporations. They had come out of the war rich and powerful, but they had a growing worry. The system of mass production had flourished during the war, and now millions of goods were pouring off production lines. What they were frightened of was the danger of overproduction, that there would come a point when people had enough goods and would simply stop buying.
Oh no.
Up until that point, the majority of products were still sold to the masses on the basis of need. While the rich had long been used to luxury goods, for the millions of working class Americans, most products were still advertised as necessities. Goods like shoes, stockings, even cars were promoted in functional terms for their durability. The aim of the advertisements was simply to show people the product's practical virtues, nothing more.
These art shit down. It's all over the place. Where do I put these pictures now?
What the corporations realized they had to do was transform the way the majority of Americans thought about products. One leading Wall Street banker, Paul Mazur of Lehman Brothers, was clear about what was necessary. We must shift America, he wrote, from a needs to a desires culture. People must be trained to desire, to want new things even before the old have been entirely consumed. We must shape a new mentality in America. Man's desires must overshadow his needs.
Prior to that time, there was no American consumer. There was the American worker, and there was the American owner, and they manufactured and they saved and they ate what they had to, and the people shopped for what they needed. And while the very rich may have bought things they didn't need. Most people did not. And Mazur envisioned a break with that, where you would have things that you didn't actually need, but you wanted, as opposed to needed.
And the man who would be at the center of changing that mentality for the corporations was Edward Bernays.
Bernays really is the guy within the United States more than anybody else who sort of brings to the table psychological theory as something that is an essential part of how, from the corporate side, of how we are going to appeal to the masses effectively. And the whole sort of merchandising establishment and sales establishment is ready for Sigmund Freud. I mean, they are ready for understanding what motivates the human mind. And so that there's this real openness to Bernays' techniques being used to sell products to the masses.
Beginning in the early 20s, the New York banks funded the creation of chains of department stores across America. They were to be the outlets for the mass-produced goods, and Bernays' job was to produce the new type of customer. Bernays began to create many of the techniques of mass consumer persuasion that we now live with. He was employed by William Randolph Hearst to promote his new women's magazines, and Bernays glamorized them by placing articles and advertisements that linked products made by others of his clients to famous film stars like Clara Bow, who was also his client. Bernays also began the practice of product placement in the movies, and he dressed the stars at the film's premieres with clothes and jewellery from other firms he represented.
Look at this bag of rosemary. What to do?
He was, he claimed, the first person to
Nice
tell
oil
car
from my
companies they could sell cars
bad hair,
as
I
symbols of male sexuality.
What?
He employed psychologists to issue reports that said products were good for you, and then pretended they were independent studies. He organised fashion shows in the department stores and paid celebrities to repeat the new and essential message. You bought things not just for need, but to express your inner sense of yourself to others.
There's a psychology of dress. Have you ever thought about it? How it can express your character? You all have interesting characters, but some of them are all hidden. I wonder why you all want to dress always the same, with the same hats, the same coats. Sure, all of you are interesting and have wonderful things about you, but looking at you in the street, you all look so much the same. And that's why I'm talking to you about the psychology of dress. Try and express yourselves better in your dress.
Knock off, bitch.
Bring out certain things that you think are hidden. I wonder if you thought of this angle of your personality.
I'd like to ask you some questions. Why do you like short skirts?
Oh, because there's more to see.
More to see, right? What good does that do you?
It makes you more attractive.
No?
In 1927, an American journalist wrote, "A change has come over our democracy. It is called consumptionism. The American citizen's first importance to his country is now no longer that of citizen, but that of consumer."
Yes, it's true.
The growing wave of consumerism helped in turn to create a stock market boom. And yet again, Edward Bernays became involved, promoting the novel idea that ordinary people should buy shares, borrowing money from banks he also represented. And yet again, millions followed his advice.
He was uniquely knowledgeable about how people in large numbers are going to react to products and ideas and so on. But in political terms, if he were to go out, so I can't imagine that he could get 3 people to stand and listen. Wasn't particularly articulate, was a kind of funny looking, and didn't have any sense of reaching out for people one-on-one. None at all. He didn't think about people in groups of one, thought about people in groups of thousands.
Bernays soon became famous as the man who understood the mind of the crowd, and And in 1924, the president contacted him.
Just 100 years ago.
President Coolidge was a quiet, taciturn man and had become a national joke. The press portrayed him as a dull, humorless figure. Bernays' solution was to do exactly the same as he had done with products. He persuaded 34 famous film stars to visit the White House. And for the first time, politics became involved with public relations.
And I lined up these 34 people, and I'd say, "What's your name?" He'd say, "Al Jolson." I'd say, "Mr. President, Al Jolson." Next day, every newspaper in the United States had a front-page story. President Coolidge entertains actors at White House. And the Times had a headline which said, "President nearly laughed." And everybody was happy.
But while Bernays became rich and powerful in America, in Vienna, his uncle was facing disaster. Like much of Europe, Vienna was suffering an economic crisis and massive inflation, which wiped out all of Freud's savings. Facing bankruptcy, he wrote to his nephew for help. Bernays responded by arranging for Freud's works to be published for the first time in America, and began to send his uncle precious dollars, which Freud kept secretly in a foreign bank account.
He was Freud's agent, if you will, to get his books published. Well, of course, once the books were being published, Eddie couldn't help himself but promote these books, see that everybody read them, make them controversial, emphasize the fact that, do you know what Freud says about sex and what he says cigarettes are a symbol of, and so on and so forth? How do you suppose all those stories got out? Certainly the academics weren't spreading these around the country. Eddie Bernays was. Then, when Freud became accepted, well then, of course, to go to a client and say, "Well, Uncle Siggy," see, then that had some cachet. But notice there, first Eddie created Uncle Siggy in the U.S., made him acceptable, secondly, and thirdly, then capitalized on Uncle Siggy. Typical Bernays performance.
Bernays also suggested that Freud promote himself in the United States. He proposed his uncle write an article for Cosmopolitan, the magazine that Bernays represented, entitled "A Woman's Mental Place in the Home." Freud was furious. Such an idea, he said, was unthinkable. It was vulgar, and anyway, he hated America. Freud was now becoming increasingly pessimistic about human beings. In the mid-20s, he retreated in the summers to the Alps, sometimes staying in an old hotel, the Pension Moritz in Berchtesgaden. It is now a ruin. Freud began to write about group behavior, about how easily the unconscious aggressive forces in human beings could be triggered when they were in crowds. Freud believed he had underestimated the aggressive instincts in human beings. They were far more dangerous than he had originally thought.
After World War I, Freud was basically a pessimist. He felt that man is an impossible creature, a very, very sadistic and bad species, and did not believe that man can be improved. Man is a ferocious animal, the most ferocious animal that exists.
Ooh, stomach.
They enjoy torturing and killing, and he didn't like man.
The publication of Freud's works in America had an extraordinary effect on journalists and intellectuals in the 1920s. What fascinated and frightened them was the picture Freud painted of submerged, dangerous forces lurking just under the surface of modern society. Forces that could erupt easily to produce the frenzied mob which had the power to destroy even governments. It was this they believed had happened in Russia. To many, this meant that one of the guiding principles of mass democracy was wrong. The belief that human beings could be trusted to make decisions on a rational basis. The leading political writer, Walter Lippmann, argued that if human beings were in reality driven by unconscious, irrational forces, then it was necessary to rethink democracy.
Whoops.
What was needed was a new elite who could manage what he called the bewildered herd. This would be done through psychological techniques that would control the unconscious feelings of the masses.
So here you have Walter Lippmann, probably the most influential political thinker in the United States, who is essentially saying that the basic mechanism of the mass mind is unreason, is irrationality, is animality. He believes that the mob in the street, which is how he sees ordinary people, are people who are driven not by their minds but by their spinal cords. The notion of kind of animal drives, unconscious instinctual drives lurking beneath the surface of civilization. And so they started looking towards psychological science as a way of understanding the mechanisms by which the popular mind works, specifically with the goal of figuring out how to understand how to apply those mechanisms to strategies for social control.
Edward Bernays was fascinated by Lippmann's arguments and also saw a way to promote himself by using them. In the 1920s, he began to write a series of books which argued that he had developed the very techniques Lippmann was calling for. By stimulating people's inner desires and then sating them with consumer products, he was creating a new way to manage the irrational.
That you can tap into their deepest desires or their deepest fears and use that to your own purposes.
And then, in 1928,
We're going to take a break. We're going to poop.